Fade in. Exterior, sky, day. Pure blue. Below, storm clouds gradually intensify. Descend into the storm clouds. Super. What a man has made himself, he will be. His state is the result of his past life, and his heaven or hell is in himself. Catherine Crowe. Thunder and lightning from multiple directions. Montage, various. Interior, hospital, day. A baby being born. Exterior, battlefield, day. Chinese warriors running into battle. Exterior, suburban street, day. A child precariously stepping off a curb. Exterior, lake, day. A woman wearing a 19th century dress standing by a lake, holding a parasol. Interior, hospital, night. An elderly woman surrounded by family members. End of montage. Exterior, storm clouds, night. Back inside storm clouds, but darker now. Descend beneath the clouds into turbulent, windswept rain. Slowly appearing is a cabin in the woods by a river. There is a side door which leads out to a deck by the river. The moon is penetrating through with a subtle light. Exterior, cabin, night. The side door of the cabin opens, and a man, face is indistinguishable, steps out onto the deck. Exterior, deck, night. He begins to pull the door closed, but then stops to look at something inside, out of camera view. Gently, he pulls the door all the way closed. Covering his head with his coat, he walks with some effort across the deck, goes down the stairs, and heads toward the water. Exterior, river's edge, night. On the edge of the water there is a rowboat turned upside down. Crouching by the side of it, he works to get his footing and slides his fingers under. He lifts slowly, though struggling, for his feet are being pushed back in the mud. He obtains leverage by placing his foot on a nearby rock. He is finally able to get the boat on its side, and he lets it fall upright. He pushes the boat into the water and gets in as it is moving, so it drifts outward. Exterior, boat, night. He retrieves the oars from under the seat, places them in the oarlocks, and begins to row. After a few minutes, land is out of sight, and all that exists is the man, the boat, and percussive heavy rain on the surrounding water. Exterior, river, night. He stops rowing and remains stagnant for a few moments while the boat drifts. With the moon as the only illumination, revealed is the face of a man, Dr. Emerson, in his 50s, with a weathered yet statuesque face. His expression is one of anguish. He bows his head to his chest. His breathing is labored. Under his coat, he is carrying a leather shoulder bag. He opens it and pulls out a book. He clasps it to his chest. A word can barely be made out on the spine, which is Nollum. He breathes more heavily as his face displays increased anguish. He reaches into the shoulder bag and pulls out a knife encased in leather. Shaking and struggling a bit with it, he unsheaths the knife. With the blade turned upward, he gazes at it with an intense concentration. Exterior, city street, night. Super, 20 years earlier. Edgar, Davis, Suzanne, and Julio, all in their early 20s, are walking together down a seedy side street. Julio is carrying a grocery bag. The only other people around are homeless.
You guys sure you want to do this?
Yeah, it's kind of creepy here, Edgar.
Well, remember we agreed that this is the only way we can try this. Unless one of you wants to volunteer?
Suzanne and Julio shake their heads.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Edgar slows down and the others match his pace. He sees a homeless man sitting by a wall. He slowly approaches him. The others do not follow. The homeless man is facing downward, and it is not apparent if his eyes are open. Edgar comes within a few feet from him.
Pardon me?
No response. He speaks a little louder this time.
Sir?
The homeless man's body jerks, and then he slowly looks up at Edgar. He looks both terrified and angry.
Can I speak with you a moment?
I don't. Scissors, paint, dirt.
Sir?
Go away. Scissors, chain, go away.
He starts to stand up. Edgar starts to back up.
It's okay, sir. Did not mean to disturb you.
The homeless man continues to stand up and starts to walk toward him. Edgar moves more swiftly away and rejoins the group.
Yeah, let's keep moving swiftly.
You think? Yeah, this was a great plan.
It'll work. We just need to find the right subject.
They walk to a safe distance away from the homeless man. They enter an area where there are several homeless people spread out. Some are in groups.
Let me try this one.
Edgar touches her arm.
You sure?
She looks at him and smiles.
Yes.
She reaches into the grocery bag Julio is carrying and pulls out a fast food hamburger. She walks toward a small group, and most of them disperse, but James remains when he sees the food. She extends her hand.
Yes, please take it.
He slowly approaches her, looks her in the eye as if not sure whether to trust her, and slowly pulls it out of her hand. He swiftly goes to the wall, crouches down to protect his food, and begins to eat it. She watches him finish it and slowly approaches him.
My name is Suzanne. What's yours?
James?
Hi, James. Would you be interested in more food and some money?
What do you want from me?
Just a little of your time.
I don't know.
She motions to Julio to bring her more food. He slowly walks up to her and hands her another hamburger.
If you come with me, this is yours and some more.
She extends her arm with the burger and takes a few steps backward. He slowly stands up and begins to follow her.
Yes, that's it. Good.
The others start walking ahead as James eventually reaches a comfort level to walk beside Suzanne. They follow at a comfortable distance behind them.
This feels sort of wrong, but have to admit it's rather exciting, too.
Think of the impact we will have on the world when this works. There is such a severe lack of understanding of who we are, and we have the ability to fill in those gaps.
I really appreciate your help with this.
What are we doing?
Something very important. I think you'll like it. It could change the world.
James slows down.
Will it hurt?
She gently pulls his arm so he is walking beside her again and shakes her head.
You may even find this to be a bit of an adventure.
They walk up to a closed barber shop named Joe's Cuts. The blinds are down, but you can see some light through them.
Come on.
She opens the door. He is hesitant, but she takes his arm and leads him in. Interior, barbershop, night. The others have already arrived. Davis and Julio are sitting on side chairs while Edgar is working on something that is out of view.
This place will work out fine. Thanks for giving us access to your father's place, Julio.
Sure, no problem. I spent most of my childhood sitting right in this spot. Dad would get annoyed with me for running around or getting into things, so he'd make me sit here.
An electronic sound is emitted from in front of Edgar.
Okay, just about there.
Revealed is an elaborate yet portable device that looks like a heavily enhanced computer system with funnels on each side. James steps back.
I don't know about this.
Trust me, James.
And here is $20 plus some more food when we're done here. Please, sir, this is important.
With his eyes, Edgar directs Suzanne to a barber chair near the device. Suzanne leads James to the chair.
Have a seat and relax.
James sits in the chair, looking very uncomfortable. Edgar approaches the chair and gives Suzanne a look that it's time to comfort him. She rubs James on the back.
Okay, we're going to start now.
Edgar reveals a needle attached to a small beaker.
I just need to take a little blood. I promise to be gentle.
Edgar extends James's arm while Suzanne continues to rub his back. The needle is inserted, and blood fills up the beaker.
You did wonderful, James.
Edgar takes the beaker and pours the blood into a funnel attached to the device. He types into the keyboard. He then takes 2 electrodes attached by a long wire to the device and approaches James.
Now, this won't hurt a bit. I'm just going to put these on your forehead in order to access your cerebral cortex.
He affixes them onto his forehead. James shifts in his seat, looking more uncomfortable.
Are we all ready?
Davis and Julio stand up.
Okay, I'm going to begin the sequence.
He enters data into the keyboard and watches the blood transfer into a container.
It has now filtered the blood into its purest form. Only the elements of pure consciousness remain.
He takes the filtered blood and pours it into a separate funnel on the device, and then enters more data on the keyboard.
Now the final sequence. James, I need you to try and tell me what you see or feel. As much detail as possible. Do you understand?
James hesitantly nods. Edgar presses a large button on the device. James's body immediately tenses up. He is groaning and mumbling.
I cannot understand you. Speak clearly.
castle.
Okay, you're in a castle. What do you see?
Looking down. People. Hungry. Angry.
Tell me more, James.
Door breakdown. They're charging at me.
He pulls off the electrodes, pushes Edgar out of the way, and rushes to the door.
Wait!
Please stop, James.
He struggles with the deadbolt while the others try to catch him. He unlocks it before they reach him, opens the door, and runs down the street.
We need more details. We must catch him. Let's go. Davis, you stay here and keep an eye on things.
The three of them run out the door. Exterior, river, night. Dr. Emerson is in the rowboat, staring at the blade turned upward with an intense concentration. Then he turns the blade downward. He takes a deep breath as his forearms begin to slowly descend. Interior, college classroom, day. Super, 3 weeks earlier. Dr. Emerson is standing behind a podium in a stadium classroom that is half full of students. Most of the students display forced interest in the lecture. A few are almost asleep. 2 students seated with an empty seat between them, Jake and Alicia, are listening very attentively. Dr. Emerson takes a deep breath and steps out from behind the podium to address the class.
From where does perspicacity emerge? We know what we know, but where does it come from?
The class is silent, so he spans the room and selects a male student who is half asleep. He looks at the seating chart.
17D. Thoughts?
Percy, what?
Perspicacity. It means having the ability to notice and understand that which is not obvious. It was in your study guide.
The male student just looks at him blankly.
Anyone?
Wouldn't that come from life experience?
Thank you for speaking up, miss. Class, what do you think?
A few moments pass.
I feel like it could be something one is possibly born with. It seems like we each have innate abilities, and there's wisdom that we're, wired with.
Interesting, Miss Constantine. Please continue.
Well, I have a friend.
Hector is sitting in the back of the room.
Wow, you actually have a
The
friend?
class chuckles. Alicia looks back and gives Hector an annoyed look.
Please continue, miss.
Anyway, as I was saying, I have this friend that can play the piano quite well. What I find interesting is that he's never had lessons. He just picked it up. Where did that come from?
Yes, very good point, Miss Constantine. That is a question we shall continue to pursue. Okay, please turn to page 176 in your textbooks.
Exterior, campus, outside of classroom, day. Dr. Emerson, Alicia, and Jake walk together, exiting the building, talking among themselves. Dr. Emerson waves them goodbye as they each walk separate directions. Dr. Emerson is carrying a leather shoulder bag. He walks through campus and enters the nearby small town. Exterior, town, day. Dr. Emerson walks past an antique store. Slowing his pace, he then comes to a stop. He backs up to the window and takes a closer look through the glass. It is a pair of antique swords. He carefully looks them up and down. He walks a bit further, then crosses the street and proceeds into a wooded area. Exterior, wooded area, day. He follows a trail and then emerges upon a large rock on the side of the cliff, overlooking a rapid stream below. Before stepping onto the rock, he looks down and notices a large stick. Considering to use it as a walking stick, he analyzes it up and down, and then wraps his hand around the end, as if holding a sword, pointing it straight ahead. Then he drops the end to the ground, adjusts his wrist to a comfortable position, and steps onto the rock. Exterior, rock ledge, day. Dr. Emerson is now sitting on the ledge. From his shoulder bag, he pulls out a container and a pair of chopsticks. With the chopsticks, he begins to eat noodles. Interior, college cafeteria, day. Jake and Hector are sitting at a table. Hector is eating his food quickly, while Jake has his food to the side and is reading Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes.
You are always studying, and that's not even a textbook, dude. I really don't understand you. Can you be any more of a nerd?
Jake looks up from his book with a blank stare. He then flips through the pages and finds the page he was looking for.
You add suffering to the world just as much when you take offense as when you give offense.
Jake resumes reading. Hector sighs.
Why do we even hang out?
We have to. We're roommates.
A few moments pass.
So, what are we doing this weekend?
Jake keeps reading.
How about we go camping? I'll ask Heather and you can take Alicia.
Isn't Heather kind of Now, how do I put this nicely? Promiscuous?
If you mean slutty, then oh yeah. And Alicia is rather the opposite. Well, I guess you two are meant to be together. Both total
Actually,
nerds.
Dr. Emerson has his LBEC conference in Union Hall on Saturday.
Oh yeah, I forgot. What's it all about again?
ELBC, Enhanced Learning by Collaboration. He gathers students from all of his psychology classes to discuss what they've learned and new ideas. I think it's a great idea. Instead of just sitting in a classroom listening, we now have the opportunity to have deeper discussions and can share our thoughts. And you get extra credit just for participating.
Sounds like a blast. I'm definitely interested in extra credit. Make sure I earn my solid C. Hey, I'm pretty sure Heather takes Psych 101 with him, so I'll bring her.
I'm sure that will truly enhance the discussion.
Interior, Student Union Hall, day. Sign on an easel as you enter the room. Welcome to the 4th Annual ELBC Conference. Large room full of round tables with chairs. Students are scattered in small groups around the room as Dr. Emerson is making his way to each table. Jake and Alicia are at a table engaged in conversation with a small group. Hector and Heather enter the room. They are affectionately bumping into each other. They make their way to an empty table, sit down, and continue to be playful. Jake notices and points them out to Alicia. They stand up, excuse themselves, and make their way to their table.
Dude, welcome. Isn't this gonna be a blast?
My hope is for you to find this stimulating, intellectually.
Hold on to that hope, brother.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
Hey there, I'm Heather. Hi, Jay.
Heather.
They sit down and join them. A few moments pass in awkward silence.
Well, I'm feeling smarter already.
Jake picks up cards from the center of the table.
We're supposed to start having discussions based on these cards. Alicia, would you like to pick the first one?
Yes, I appreciate that, Jake.
She picks a card and looks uncomfortable. She looks toward Jake and then puts the card face down.
Well, what does it say?
Let me pick another one, please.
This must be good. Now I am really curious.
He reaches over, grabs the card, and reads it aloud.
Implications of grief. Wow, this should be fun.
Alicia rubs Jake's arm. He puts his hand on hers, indicating that he is okay.
I'm taking another card.
She picks up another card and still looks uncomfortable. She takes a deep breath and reads it.
Okay, the subject we are to discuss is childhood memories.
Well, that sounds simple enough. What's important about that?
Perhaps those experiences we have as children have a strong impact on our behavior as adults.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I'll start. My favorite childhood memory was reaching puberty.
Yes, and that certainly has had a significant impact in your adulthood, as it were.
I'll begin the discussion. My father would take me and my sisters on hikes in the local mountains. He knew a lot about nature and animals and shared interesting facts. I think those experiences helped me appreciate the outdoors and the innocence of our furry friends.
Furry friends? How cute.
Hey, be nice.
Anyway, one particular hike rather stuck with me. We had walked a fair distance, and I was the first to notice a dead raccoon on the side of the trail.
Dr. Emerson approaches the table.
Hello, all. I see you're all in active discussion. Excellent. Mind if I join you?
Not at all, sir. Glad to have you here.
He sits down.
May I ask what you were discussing?
Well, we picked 2 cards. Childhood memories and the implications of grief. From Alicia's story so far, I'm thinking that we're discussing both topics.
That truly was not my intention. I simply wanted to share a childhood memory that had a strong impact on me.
The subject matter is truly not as important as the engaging discussion that follows. Please, continue with your story, Alicia.
Thank you, sir. As I was saying, we were on a hike and I found a dead raccoon. It made me quite sad. My father pulled me and my sisters aside and we had an open discussion on death and what happens afterward.
She suddenly looks uncomfortable, takes a quick glance at Jake, and then looks away.
Oh my, I intended this to be about a childhood memory, not about the other subject. It was just the first significant memory that came to my mind.
Jake puts his hand on her leg and looks her right in the eye.
It's okay. Please, continue.
She nods and takes a deep breath.
Okay. Anyway, we all said a prayer and wished the poor thing to a better place. I truly wanted to believe that there is something in the beyond. That was my first experience with anything dying.
How sad. What did you do next?
Well, my father had us all dig a hole. We lifted it with sticks and gently lowered it into the ground. Then we covered it up and made a cross out of the sticks. We stood around silently for a few minutes and then continued on our hike. I will never forget that experience.
Thanks for sharing, Alicia. Who would like to go next?
I will. This is a memory that stuck with me. My dad tried to take me hunting as a kid. He taught me how to shoot hitting beer cans. I'm pretty good aim, but I didn't really have interest in killing anything. One day he said, "Grab your gun, follow me, boy." We went into the woods, and suddenly he stopped and shushed me. He whispered, "See that?" pointing to a chipmunk on a log. "It's all yours." I aimed my gun.
Oh no, please don't, Hector.
Actually, you may be surprised at where this is going. May I continue?
Sorry, continue.
Anyway, I aimed my gun towards a chipmunk, but I couldn't do it, so I faked a sneeze. Chipmunk got away, and man, was my dad pissed at me. "You're killing something today, boy," he said. We then came upon a squirrel, not 5 feet away, that didn't notice us. Dad gave me a look, so I aimed my gun. I knew he wasn't going to let me leave that day without killing something. So I closed my eyes and pulled the trigger. Before I opened my eyes, I hear, "You did it, boy!" I saw what was left of that poor animal, and I think I lost a part of myself that day. And after that, my dad thought I broke my gun trying to clean it, but at least I never had to do that again. Guess I'm a farmer, not a hunter.
Heather puts her head on his shoulder.
Oh, my sensitive man.
Hector gives Jake a look with a slight smile.
Truly enlightening.
Not the most delicate segue.
Dr. Emerson smirks.
Would you like to go next?
Alicia leans over to Jake's ear.
You don't have to.
He thinks for a moment.
I think I would prefer to hold off, if you don't mind.
Perfectly fine, Jake. Mind if I contribute? I believe my story lends to the significance on the impact of childhood experiences.
Yes, of course, sir.
As most of you know, I was a clinical psychologist before I became a full-time professor. In addition to helping many patients, I learned a great deal from them also. As I was listening to your stories, one particular patient came to mind. I'll call her Annabelle. She was in her 30s and struggling with depression. I spent multiple sessions trying to get her to open up about her childhood, but she would just stay silent or broach another subject. I convinced her that I can be of more help if I can learn more deeply about her past and suggested hypnotherapy. She was reluctant at first, but when it finally became apparent to her that she might not improve without some assistance, she agreed. The sessions revealed that she indeed had an unstable and troubled childhood, which clearly resulted in her adult depression. But one particular session was truly fascinating.
Flashback. Interior ballet studio, day. A large-framed woman in a ballet class. They are following an instructor and attempting to perform basic moves.
During her sessions, she had revealed to me a fascination with becoming a ballerina. She took lessons throughout her life, but did not have the right body frame for it. She chose never to perform in public. Well, in a session where I had her hypnotized, we were searching in her consciousness as far back as possible into her childhood.
End flashback. Montage, various. Exterior, park, day. Family in a park, flying a kite. Interior, house, night. Peeking around a corner in the hallway to see a bottle of liquor in a man's hand. She leans around the corner more to see her parents arguing. The father strikes her mother. Interior, house, day. Looking up from a crib. All is black for a few moments.
Then it got interesting.
Flashback, interior, performance hall, night. A female ballet dancer is on stage performing professionally with other dancers in a performance hall with a full audience. They complete the routine and bow. The audience stands with applause. End flashback. Dr. Emerson looks around the table. They all look a little stunned.
Okay, so what exactly was she seeing?
Well, what do you think?
Could have been her imagination.
Or maybe she was seeing something that she really wanted.
Both possibilities. but in my experience, hypnosis engages unconscious memories from actual events.
Dr. Emerson, then why do you think that she saw herself as a professional ballerina?
There are several possible explanations, but
Yes?
personally, I would like to believe that she was seeing beyond.
Beyond?
Please understand that this is more of a personal belief than a clinical one, but yes, beyond her current lifetime.
Wow, that's heavy.
Anyway, you should all continue your discussions. Remember to try and relate them to what you've learned.
He stands up.
Thank you all for your participation. I hope by the end you will have gained more than just some extra credit.
They watch him walk away as he approaches another table. The four of them sit there in silence, looking a little stunned.
Wow. He really is a bit out there. Huh?
Well, I think he's fascinating. Okay, where were we? Heather, do you have any childhood memories you'd like to share?
Let me think. Yes, I do. I was about 12 years old and had a neighbor named Ryan that was just a few years older. He was cute. Well, one day I was walking home from school and he came up to me and he asked if I wanted to go in the woods. Wasn't sure what he meant, but I liked him, so I decided to do it. After a while, he stopped, leaned up against a tree, and was looking at me. Next thing I know, he was unbuttoning his pants.
Exterior, park bench on campus, night. Jake and Alicia are sitting on a secluded park bench.
What did you think about the conference?
I think it was educational. I like Dr. Emerson. I think he truly cares.
I do too.
A few moments pass. Alicia begins to look uncomfortable.
Sorry about the subject matter. And my story.
Jake is looking at the ground and doesn't look up.
It's okay.
He then looks up at the sky. She watches him as he appears to be in heavy thought.
I'm a little afraid to ask, but what are you thinking about?
Jake looks back down.
I can't imagine how hard that was, especially when you were only 13.
Just so hard to get over, especially when it was such a freak accident.
Exterior, model airplane show, day, flashback. Jake, at 13 years old, is using his remote control while attempting to do stunts with his plane. His father is standing behind him. Jake looks intimidated as he looks around at older children controlling their planes with much more confidence. Jake's mother and Rebecca are sitting in the bleachers, cheering him on.
Be right back, Mama.
Rebecca hops down from the bleachers, passes by her father, and taps Jake on the shoulder.
What, Rebecca?
This is for you, Jake. It's for good luck.
She hands him a small troll doll. He rolls his eyes, but then notices his father take a step forward with a stern look.
Thank you, Rebecca.
He puts the troll doll in his pocket and proceeds with flying the plane. As Rebecca is returning to the bleachers, a model plane controlled by one of the older children comes within a few feet above her head. She screeches and runs quickly back to her mother. Back on the field, Jake is struggling a bit to control his plane.
You're doing fine, Jake. Just find your groove and stick with it.
Jake manages to get his plane to do a loop, and then has a bit of a rough landing. They all continue to watch for a while as the older children do impressive stunts with their planes.
You did well, Jake. You're only ever competing against yourself. As long as you're improving, then you're on the right track. If you find yourself stagnant, then go back to basics.
Exterior, car, day. They are driving home and pass an open field.
Wow. Look at all that space, Jake.
Can we, Dad? I'd like some more practice.
Jake's father looks at his mother, and she smiles and nods.
Yay!
Jake's father pulls the car to the side of the road. They all get out, cross the road, and go toward the open field, Jake carrying his plane. Exterior, field, day. Jake is now flying his plane again, and feeling much more confident as his family cheers him on.
Well done, son.
So proud of you, Jake.
Can I try it?
Okay, but I need you to be very careful.
I will. I promise.
He hands her the remote and points to the right throttle.
Now just barely move that one.
Plane turns slightly.
I did it!
Everyone cheers her on. Exterior, car, day. They continue to drive home. The car slowly emerges upon a truck carrying stacks of narrow metal rods that are rattling. There is no way to pass, so they are stuck behind it indefinitely. Suddenly, the truck swerves and 3 rods fall off. One bounces to the left of the car, one to the right, and one bounces in front of the car and over the top of it.
Are you guys okay?
She sees Jake's face, who has a look of shock. He is looking toward Rebecca. The metal rod has come through the roof and impaled her. End flashback. Exterior, park bench on campus, night. Back to present day. Tears are running down Jake's face. He pulls a small troll doll from his pocket. Alicia consoles him. Exterior, seaside town, night. A bar called Leeward near the docks in a small, aged town. Interior, Leeward Bar, night. In this small, dimly lit bar, the only occupants are Edgar and Lee, the bartender. Edgar is sitting at the bar. Lee walks toward him from behind the bar.
Another slow night.
Edgar takes a sip of whiskey.
Indeed.
Shall we play another round?
Sounds lovely.
Lee pulls out the board game Chronology from behind the bar and sets it up.
I'll let you go first.
I appreciate it, sir. I need all the help I can get playing against you.
They each pull a card out of the box and place them in front of each other, face up. Edgar pulls out the next card with the text out of Lee's view.
Okay, here we go. The clasp locker, or zipper, is invented by Whitcomb Judson.
The zipper? You mean like my fly? Wow, that was an important invention. Except when I get my dick caught in it. I would think it was in the 1800s, so it would have been invented before 1938 when the Volkswagen Beetle was introduced.
Edgar places the card next to Lee's first card about the Volkswagen Beetle.
Well done, sir. It was invented in the year 1893.
Lee picks up the next card.
Academic and adventurer Hiram Bingham rediscovers the lost city of Machu Picchu in Peru. So, was that before or after 1791 when Vermont became the 14th state to join the Union?
Clearly after. More specifically, the lost city of Machu Picchu was discovered in 1911. Since the ruins were on top of a mountain, that name was decided because it meant old peak in the Quechua language.
Of course, you're exactly correct. And the history lesson is always appreciated.
Lee places the card in front of Edgar next to his first card.
My pleasure, sir. Okay, Mammoth Cave National Park is established in the United States. It features the longest cave system known in the world.
Mammoth Cave? Never even heard of it.
I'll give you a hint which may or may not be helpful. It is in Kentucky.
Fortunately, that geography does not help me establish the time period. Sounds like something that happened in the 1800s to me. Let's see. If the zipper was invented in 1893, then I will say that the park was established before that.
Are you certain?
Not even remotely.
Well, incorrect, sir. Mammoth Cave National Park was established in 1941. Interesting fact.
I really don't want to know, Edgar.
As you wish.
Edgar places the card in the back of the box, since Lee guessed incorrectly. The game continues until Edgar has 9 cards in front of him, and Lee has 5.
One more and you win. Hey, I've had some good guesses, though.
Well, let's wrap this up, shall we?
Okay. The great fire of Rome devastates the city. Rumors arise that Emperor Nero started the fire in order to clear land for his new palace.
That is almost ancient history. That will go at the beginning of my pile for the win, I assume?
Yes, genius, for the win. Congratulations once again. Aren't you going to tell me the exact year?
I was rather hoping you wouldn't ask. Only have an idea that it was in the first 100 years AD. I'll guess 40.
Actually, it was in the year 64. Still, not a bad guess.
Well, good game as always, sir.
Yes, always good for you. I guess it's time to close up shop. Big plans tomorrow?
Just another day at work crunching numbers.
Well, the world needs you accountants to keep us all a little dishonest come tax time.
Good night, Lee.
Night, Edgar.
Exterior, seaside town, night. Edgar exits the bar, slightly stumbling. After a few blocks, he comes to a slow stop and looks behind him as if he heard something. Then he continues to walk several blocks, where the houses slowly change from run-down to more upscale. He finds his house, looks back again but sees nothing, and enters. Interior, Edgar's house, bathroom. He stumbles into the bathroom and relieves himself. Interior, Edgar's house, kitchen. He enters the kitchen and opens a drawer where he pulls out a legal pad. He hovers over it, leaning on the counter, mumbling to himself, then jots down some notes. He heads toward the stairs, going upward. Interior, Edgar's house, bedroom. Carrying the legal pad, he enters his bedroom. He takes his shoes off, but lays down on the bed with his clothes on, and falls asleep with the legal pad in his hand. Exterior, across street from Edgar's house, night. In the woods, an indistinguishable face is watching Edgar's house. Interior, Edgar's house, morning. Daylight through the window awakens Edgar. He slowly gets out of bed, and the legal pad falls to the floor. Interior, Edgar's house, master bathroom. He enters the bathroom and relieves himself. He then splashes cold water on his face, dries it, and gazes into the mirror. He runs his hand around his scruffy beard as if trying to groom it, but immediately realizes it will not make a difference. Interior, Edgar's house, bedroom. He walks toward the door to exit the room, but then stops and backs up to pick up the legal pad. He exits the room. Interior, Edgar's house, kitchen. Edgar takes a cup of coffee out of the microwave, which he reheated, and proceeds to look at his notes on the legal pad.
What does that say? Oh, I see it now.
He scribbles more notes on the pad, adjusting the part he was unable to read. Carrying the coffee and the pad, he exits the kitchen. Interior, Edgar's house, hallway. He walks down the hall and approaches a door with a keypad on the wall. He enters a code into the keypad, opens the door, and proceeds down a level of stairs. Interior, Edgar's house, outside of laboratory. At the bottom of the stairs is an optical scanner. It scans his eye, and 2 sliding doors open. Interior, Edgar's house, laboratory. He enters. There is a device inside that has a console with computer components, funnels on each side, and a large monitor next to it. In the center of the room is a chair similar to the one you'd see at the dentist. Several feet above the chair is a head apparatus. He approaches the console and enters code into the keyboard that he is reading off of his legal pad. He presses enter, and more code appears on the screen. He reviews it.
Okay, well, that's a little bit of progress.
Exterior, park by a river, day. Megan and Ebby are in a 2-person kayak paddling on the river.
It is so beautiful out here. So many people don't even notice the beauty that surrounds us every day. God created nature in order for us to cherish it.
Dr. Emerson is on land reading a book called The Nalum Rhapsody by Edgar Graves, and occasionally looking up to watch them at a distance. As they are passing by, they wave to him and smile. He waves back with a blank expression on his face, and goes back to his book.
I don't know what I'm going to do with him. He's a good husband, but it sometimes feels like I'm married to a stranger. He always seems to be someplace else.
When's the last time you two had sex?
Do you always have to go there? Maybe you'll understand one day that there is more to relationships than just physical.
Maybe, but that's a lot less fun.
Seriously, I want him to understand my dreams and passions.
You volunteer at food drives, animal shelters, and the hospital. You want to help those in need, and those are things you are passionate about. He doesn't understand that?
I think he respects that I do it, but that it just is something I do to keep busy while he's making the money. I am passionate about those things, and think I am making a difference. And by the way, we haven't had sex this year. Ugh.
You almost sound lonely.
Oh.
I hate to suggest this, but do you two need a break?
I don't know. I just want someone who's present in my life.
They are now paddling by him again.
Shall we make our way in?
Yes. Let's see if my stranger even notices that we're back.
They pull up to the shore and step out of the boat. They are struggling to pull the boat onto land.
Stephen! Stephen!
He continues to read.
Oh my God. Stephen!
He suddenly looks up, a little surprised that they are right there. He stands up, briskly walks over to them, and helps them pull the boat onto shore.
Back to our world now?
He looks at her with a blank expression. Interior, car, day. With the kayak strapped to the roof, they are driving away from the park. Dr. Emerson is driving, Megan in the passenger seat, Ebby in the back seat. Some time passes with no conversation.
Always a pleasure spending time with you two.
Megan smirks. She picks up the book that he was reading, that he placed on the seat between them, and starts to flip through it.
You're always reading the same book.
As she is flipping through it, she sees several highlighted sections. Some time passes before he responds.
There are many answers in there.
Okay. Answers to what?
To speak in the most basic terms, who we are and why.
Okay, that's heavy.
There is much that is unseen.
Obviously, you just passed my house.
He makes a U-turn and pulls into her driveway. Ebby gets out of the car, and the women kiss each other on the cheek.
See you soon, girlfriend. Once again, always interesting spending time with both of you.
Dr. Emerson is looking forward. Ebby rolls her eyes.
See you, Doc.
He waves without looking in her direction.
Bye, honey. Call you.
Car pulls out of the driveway.
How about we open some wine and I'll make you that chicken Florentine you like?
Okay.
Interior, Dr. Emerson's house, foyer, day. They walk through the front door. He heads to his study and closes the door. She stands there looking exasperated. Interior, Dr. Emerson's study, night. Dr. Emerson opens a drawer in his desk and pulls out a worn newspaper clipping. Headline reads, "Woman found dead in apartment from possible suicide."
I hope you are performing grand jeté wherever you are. I speak your story in order to keep your memory alive.
Exterior, city street, night. Super, 20 years earlier. Edgar, Suzanne, and Julio are running down the street toward where James had been running. They come to an intersection.
Okay, let's spread out and meet back at the spot in 15 minutes. I think it worked. We need him to debrief, though, and to find out more about what he saw. If one of us finds him, bring him right to the barbershop. We'll know you're there if you don't meet us here.
Suzanne and Julio acknowledge, and they each go down a different street. Individually, they approach several people, startling some, but none are James. 15 minutes later, they all emerge back at the spot.
Anything?
I think he's hiding. He looks pretty scared when he left.
Damn it. All right, let's get back to the shop.
Interior, barbershop, night. The three enter back into the shop. Davis is pacing back and forth.
Did you find him?
Nah, he's gone like the wind.
Shit, I forgot to turn on the recorder. Okay, everybody grab a pad and sit. Let's debrief based on what we heard. Davis, did you already write your notes while you were here?
No, but think I remember everything. I'll write them now.
They all start writing. Interior, barbershop, night. Several minutes later.
Okay, everyone finished?
They all acknowledge.
I say we take a break and get a drink.
Yeah, we need a breather. At least we have everything written down now. Let's head to Malio's. Bring your notes.
Interior, Malio's bar, night. All four of them are sitting at a booth.
I really think my device is working. Cerebral circulation of the blood absorbed the particles of consciousness when it reached that part of the brain, right here behind the forehead. Consciousness transcends time. My device then filtered the blood similar to our brain barriers, accepting mostly lipid-soluble molecules by passive diffusion. The device then recognized the resulting formula as representative of pure consciousness from that individual. The electrodes connecting to the cerebral cortex allowed a bridge between current awareness and what is otherwise hidden.
Yes, my sentiments exactly.
Let's debrief. Suzanne, do you want to begin?
Well, let's see. He mentions a castle. Sounded like he was inside.
Okay, let's start with that. A castle. And he was looking out and downward, so he was possibly higher up in the castle. Oh, more elevation denotes increased nobility, right?
I say he was a king, or maybe a prince.
Davis, what do you think?
Yeah, royalty.
I have that he was seeing people that were hungry.
Why, my notes show that they looked angry too.
So he was looking down from a castle at people that were hungry and angry. If he was royalty, perhaps they were his unhappy subjects?
Good work.
Yeah, I think he managed to piss those dudes off.
And then the door breaks down.
And the pissed off dudes charge him.
That seems to be the last thing he saw. I think it was his very last thought before dying.
I do think the most potent events in one's life, even a past one, would surface first.
So, to sum this up, we think he was perhaps a king that impoverished his people and they ultimately rebelled against him, killing him.
And in this life, he's homeless and starving. Karma, dude.
I have work to do on my device. I want to see what they are seeing.
Interior, Edgar's apartment, bedroom, night. Edgar enters the bedroom to find Suzanne on the bed, wearing lingerie.
You did very well today, genius. How about a reward?
Edgar smiles, approaches her, and they passionately kiss.
Wow. Guess I'll have to make life-changing discoveries more often.
Guess you'll have to.
He starts to kiss her body in very specific places, as if it is a predetermined pattern. She moans.
You know exactly where to touch me.
They make love. Then she rests her head on his shoulder.
So what now?
I need to enhance the device. We need to better understand the interpretations. Lots of work to do.
I was actually thinking of right now. Want a drink?
Yes, of course.
They both put on some clothes and exit the room. Interior, Edgar's apartment, living room, night. Edgar sits on the sofa while Suzanne makes hard drinks.
I also need a name for my device.
I think the name Suzanne works perfectly.
No, I only want and need one beautiful Suzanne in my life. I've been thinking on this. Where a person is, consciously speaking, is on their own land, the matter that surrounds them is their current true existence, even if they are only viewing it in their minds. Therefore, to each person, it is my land. Now, with my device, the surrounding matter has been temporarily transformed, so I think I shall call it the Nalim, which is my land in reverse.
Very clever, dear. I like it.
Then that makes it so. The Nalim.
Montage, various. Exterior, sailboat, day. Sails up, soaring across the water. Alexine and a man, both attractive and in their 30s, are displaying pleasure as they adjust the sails. Exterior, amusement park, night. Same couple is walking through the park sharing cotton candy and laughing. Interior, bedroom, night. Same couple is lying face up, breathing heavily and covered with sweat. They both smile and look at each other. Alexine then turns over and has a distant look on her face. Interior, church, day. Wedding. The church is full. Same man is standing at the altar next to the groomsmen with a concerned look on his face. He looks at the best man, who gives him a reassuring look. Interior, bedroom, day. Alexine is in her wedding dress, staring at the mirror with sadness. Interior, church, day. Groom now looks very concerned. The groomsmen are comforting him. The congregation is restless. Interior, bedroom, day. Wedding dress on the floor. Interior, car, day. Alexine, now in casual clothes, is driving fast away from town, with tears in her eyes. End of montage. Interior, college classroom, day, present day. Dr. Emerson is speaking to his class.
So that wraps up this section on behavioral patterns. Exam is on Friday. Any questions?
No one raises their hand, but some of the students share looks of frustration.
Good. I'm glad you all thoroughly understand the material. I truly do want you to succeed. You all have my email address if you have questions. Class dismissed. Jake and Alicia, can you please meet me in my office?
They acknowledge. Interior, Dr. Emerson's office. Jake and Alicia are sitting in front of his desk. Dr. Emerson enters and proceeds behind his desk, still standing. Hello, you two. Can I get you anything? Alicia looks at Jake as if asking the same question.
No, sir. We're fine. Thank you for asking.
Dr. Emerson sits down. He pulls out his copy of the Nalim Rhapsody. Did you two have a chance to read your copies?
We did, sir.
And?
Honestly, a little difficult to understand. Perhaps a bit of science fiction.
Alicia immediately jumps in.
But truly fascinating, sir.
Dr. Emerson thinks for a moment.
Firstly, please understand that I'm fully aware that this is complex subject matter. I selected you two because you're my best and my brightest. You have young, open minds that can, in the very least, gain some understanding of what is under the surface and the rather significant implications. I myself have read the book multiple times to better understand it. I even marked off particular sections that I frequently revisit to gain a better understanding. Now remember, all science starts as fiction. It only becomes fact when it is proven. So my question is this. Do you think it's possible?
Jake and Alicia look at each other.
Do we believe that individuals can have past lives? I think we both do.
But, after reading this, do you think it's possible to prove it?
They both shrug their shoulders.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. And I've been taking steps in that direction to learn more.
He hands them both a letter.
What's this?
Read it.
Dear Dr. Emerson, I confess that I do not often take the time to read and respond to all letters I receive from my publisher. But when I saw your position at the university, I felt the impulse to read your inquiry. Your comprehension of my concepts are more acute than I have previously experienced.
Wow, is that from the author of the book?
Jake looks at the bottom of the letter.
Yes, this is written by Edgar Graves.
It gets more interesting. Please, continue reading.
Okay, let's see. There. I would like to invite you to visit my home to discuss in more detail. I would be happy to provide travel accommodations. Please provide a response at your earliest convenience.
So did you respond?
I did indeed.
And?
I informed him that I am very interested in a visit, but I humbly request that 2 of my brilliant protégés join me.
You mean us?
Of course I mean you too.
Wow, we are truly honored. Have you received a response?
Dr. Emerson holds up 3 first-class plane tickets. Jake and Alicia are beaming.
We leave Friday afternoon.
Interior, Dr. Emerson's bedroom, day.
You all packed?
I am.
You're really meeting the author of that book you continually read?
He actually invited me to his home. I feel a sense of enthusiasm about this.
I'm happy for you, Stephen. I hope you find what you're looking for.
The doorbell rings.
That would be my students.
Dr. Emerson picks up his suitcase, and they exit the room. Interior, Dr. Emerson's house, foyer, day. With Megan standing behind him, Dr. Emerson opens the door to find Alicia and Jake carrying luggage.
Hello, Mrs. Emerson. It is a pleasure to see you again.
Megan displays a forced smile.
Let's load up my SUV and get on the road. Goodbye, dear.
Interior, restaurant, night. It is 20 years earlier and 6 months after the barbershop experiment. Suzanne is sitting in a nice restaurant with her mother and father. She has her cell phone to her ear and looks upset. She then hangs up the phone.
No answer.
She hits the top of the table with her fist and is trying to hold back tears.
Maybe he just got delayed, dear.
No, he's working on his damn experiments.
She looks up at her parents, now with tears in her eyes.
I'm so sorry. This is so embarrassing.
Maybe he sounds like he's quite passionate about his work.
Yes, but I wish that passion were directed towards me. I'm second fiddle.
She looks away from her parents and now looks angry.
Damn machine.
Interior, airplane, day. Dr. Emerson is sitting in first class by the window with no one beside him. Jake and Alicia are sitting across the aisle.
Are we comfortable?
Quite, sir. Thank you. This is my first time in first class.
Mine too.
She places her hand in his.
Dr. Emerson, we're not quite sure what to expect when we arrive.
I admit that this journey is rather unexpected for me as well. I'm certain all will be revealed once we meet the enigmatic Dr. Graves.
The plane lands. Interior, airport, baggage claim, day. After retrieving their luggage, they head toward the exit and see an older gentleman, Howard, wearing a cap holding a sign displaying Emerson. They approach him.
I believe we are the Emerson party.
Excellent, sir. Please follow me.
Exterior, airport parking lot, day. He escorts them to a luxury sedan. Jake and Alicia attempt to control their excitement. Howard holds the door for each of them as they enter the vehicle. He then begins to put their luggage in the trunk. Interior, luxury sedan, day.
This is exciting.
I'm glad you're both enjoying yourselves. This is rather a bit of an adventure.
Howard opens the door and sits in the driver's seat.
Are we all comfortable?
Indeed we are, sir. May I ask the time it will take to reach our destination?
Approximately 45 minutes, sir.
Excellent, thank you.
Exterior, road to exit airport, day. The car is approaching the airport exit. Interior, car, day. Jake is staring intently out the window toward a descending plane. Exterior, airport runway, day. The plane Jake is watching lands. Exterior, countryside, day. The scenery has changed from airport to lush countryside. Interior, car, day. A 19th century house catches the eye of Dr. Emerson. Exterior, 19th century house, day. It appears that a woman dressed in a period dress is standing in the window. Interior, car, day. Dr. Emerson leans toward the car window to look more closely, but the house disappears behind the trees. Exterior, seaside town, day.
We are almost to our destination.
What a charming town.
The vehicle pulls in front of Edgar's house. Exterior, toll booth, night. It is present day, and Davis is in a toll booth looking very bored as he collects money from vehicles, occasionally pulling through. He has an overgrown beard, and his shirt is untucked. George, an overweight man in his 60s, makes his way to Davis's booth and enters.
Davis? George?
Anything to report?
Yeah, life sucks.
No, I meant anything new to report.
Not a damn thing.
Here, I brought you something.
He hands him a book titled Historical Influences.
What's this?
It's a book.
What for?
Well, to read. I know this job can get boring. I am a bit of a history buff, so I grabbed this off my shelf because it's one of the better books on history I've read. Just thought you might find it to be interesting.
Davis flips through the book.
Oh, thanks, George. Good night.
Davis quickly exits the booth. George sighs and takes over Davis's seat. Interior, Davis's apartment, night. It is a very small and barely decorated apartment. Davis is sitting up in his bed with a beer. He is flipping through TV channels and not finding anything of interest. He turns off the TV and sighs. Noticing the book George gave him on the dresser, he gets up and brings it back to the bed. He opens it in the middle and starts to read. He then looks up from the book with an intense expression. He takes a deep breath, holds it for several seconds, then releases it. Interior, Edgar's study, day. Dr. Emerson, Alicia, and Jake are admiring the decor and artwork.
I believe these items are all from the Renaissance period.
Very elegant.
I agree.
Edgar enters the room.
My guests, welcome.
Dr. Graves, it is truly a pleasure to meet you.
They shake hands.
Call me Edgar, please. And you must be Jake. And of course, very nice to meet you, Alicia.
He shakes both of their hands.
I see you were looking at my Piero. This one is called St. Jerome in Penitence.
Yes, it's quite interesting.
What you may find interesting is that Piero della Francesca stopped painting and took up another profession partway through his life.
Really?
Yes, and you can find the answer to what he chose for his new profession by studying his paintings.
All three begin to study the painting.
I see books in the painting. Did he perhaps become an author?
Unfortunately, not quite.
Based on the theme of the painting, did he become a theologian?
Another good guess, but we need to look closer at his style rather than the painting itself.
It's a very balanced painting with shapes and angles.
You're on the right track, sir. And?
I would say he became an architect.
Very close, sir. Actually, he gave up his painting to become a mathematician. He dedicated his last years in creating scholarly works in geometry and perspective.
He points to sections of the painting. See the placement of those trees and of these books. That is true geometry and excellent perspective.
Truly fascinating, sir.
Well, every individual has unique talents and passions. It is important to embrace them and be the catalyst for their growth in order to enhance your self-actualization as well as to better this universe with your contributions. Let us proceed to the next room where I have drinks and snacks prepared. You must have acquired hunger on your trip, shall we?
He leads them to the next room. All three continue to take notice of the decor as they proceed. Interior, Edgar's house, sitting room. There are food and drinks on a table next to a sofa and chairs in a circle.
Please, help yourself, my friends, and then let's sit and chat.
They each select food and drinks and then sit down.
Firstly, I am truly honored to have each of you here.
I assure you, sir, the honor is ours.
I believe I am on the precipice of a breakthrough. This project has taken a good portion of my life, but perhaps this next step will be the moment I have been waiting for. I asked you here for I need some assistance with intelligent collaboration, as well as objectivity. The basis of my concepts are described in my book, which I know you're all familiar with.
What would you like us to do?
Well, at this point, simply observe. Perhaps it is time to show you what this is all about.
Knock at the front door.
Oh, let me introduce you first.
He leaves the room. Sounds are heard of the front door opening as well as inaudible dialogue. He re-enters, and following is Alexine. Dr. Emerson and Jake immediately stand up. Alicia slowly follows suit.
Please allow me to introduce my assistant, Alexine. Alexine, this is Alicia, Jake, and Dr. Stephen Emerson.
Alexine smiles and nods to each of them. When she reaches Dr. Emerson, their eyes lock for a few moments, but then he diverts his eyes.
Shall we all proceed? I have shared this with very few, so I admit that I am feeling both apprehension as well as eager anticipation.
Indeed. Please, lead the way.
Interior, Edgar's house, hallway. He leads them down the hallway to the door with the keypad. Covering it with his hand, he enters the code. They follow him downstairs. Interior, Edgar's house, outside of laboratory. He opens the final doors with the optical scanner. Jake, Alicia, and Dr. Emerson share looks of being impressed. Alexine, behind them, sees them and smiles.
In case you haven't noticed, he doesn't do anything small.
Interior, Edgar's house, laboratory. They all enter the elaborate laboratory. Edgar stands back and watches the three of them as they scope out the facility in awe.
Welcome to my life's work. This is the Nolim.
Quite impressive, sir.
Edgar approaches a console and signals for them to approach him.
Here are the brains. It all begins here.
He enters data into the keyboard, and the entire device begins to hum.
Alexine, when can we expect our first subject?
A light flashes on the wall, and Alexine points to it.
I believe our subject has just arrived. I'll go retrieve her.
Excellent, excellent.
Alexine exits the laboratory.
If I may ask, Dr. Graves, what is that large monitor for?
That, my dear Jake, is the most recent and exciting addition to the Nolim. If all goes as planned, the information we seek will appear on that monitor.
Wow. Really?
Well, that is the hope. This will be the initial test with this rather crucial element.
Alexine enters and is followed by Kristen, a woman in her 20s that looks like a gypsy.
Well, hi everybody.
Edgar, Dr. Emerson, Jake, and Alicia, I would like you to meet Kristen.
Hi y'all. That's Kristen with 2 Y's.
Welcome, Kristen, and I appreciate your responding to my ad.
My pleasure, sir. I can use the extra money, and the free health checkup is certainly a bonus.
Did you have any trouble finding the place?
Well, I ain't so good with directions, so I actually took the bus into town yesterday. Wandered around all afternoon until I finally found the house. Since we weren't scheduled to meet until today, I just crashed over at the park.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
Alicia and Jake roll their eyes at each other. Edgar notices and smirks.
Well, shall we begin?
Do with me what you must.
This way, please.
Alexine grabs her arm rather firmly and directs her to the chair in the center of the device. Kristen hops up onto the chair.
Ooh, comfy.
All right, let's begin. First, I need to take your blood, if you don't mind.
He approaches her with a needle attached to a beaker.
Okay.
This way we can use your blood to test all sorts of things to make sure you're healthy.
He sticks the needle in her arm and draws blood.
Well done, madam.
He walks over to the console, releases the beaker from the needle, and pours the blood into a funnel attached to the console. He enters more data into the keyboard. Kristen is watching the whole process.
Wow, that's some contraption.
Edgar smiles at her and then looks to Alexine.
Shall we continue?
Okay, Kristen. I'm going to tighten these wrist restraints, for it's important that you don't move.
Kristen looks at Alexine and makes a purring noise. Alexine rolls her eyes and makes the restraints extra tight.
Ow!
Oops, sorry. Now, please sit as still as possible. That device above your head is going to slowly lower. It will come over your head and will stop when this front part that looks like big sunglasses are over your eyes. You will feel some pressure on your forehead and other various places on your head in order for us to obtain the information needed for your exam. Just let me know if you become in any way uncomfortable. Understand?
Okay.
Edgar enters more data into the keyboard. The head apparatus above her head slowly lowers. Kristen looks up at it apprehensively.
It will be fine. Please look straight ahead.
The device slowly descends over her head.
You're okay, right?
Yeah.
Alexine looks toward Edgar with a gesture asking if he is ready to proceed. He nods. Edgar enters more data into the keyboard. He then takes the beaker of blood from under one funnel and pours it into the other funnel. He enters more data into the keyboard. Humming is heard inside the head device. Kristen grips the armrests more firmly.
Okay, Kristen. You are now going to feel that pressure on your head like we discussed.
Okay.
We're still okay, right?
Yeah.
Now, just relax and think about sitting in a rowboat in the middle of the sea.
Kristen takes a deep breath.
Okay.
Now we'll begin the exam, Kristen. Your brain may begin to process some images as we conduct the psychological part of the exam. Just let them flow freely.
Edgar waves his hands to Dr. Emerson, Jake, and Alicia to get their attention. He then points to the monitor and mouths the word, "Watch." They all divert their attention to the monitor. Edgar places his hand over a large button on the Nolim, takes a deep breath, and then presses the button. Kristen's body tightens up.
Oh.
Please just relax and let things flow, Kristen.
Her body becomes relaxed again. Monitor. Static appears on the screen. Back to laboratory. Edgar rubs his hands together in anticipation. Several seconds pass with no change on the screen.
Come on, come on.
Alicia takes hold of Jake's arm. Monitor. Images begin to appear on the screen. As the images become more clear, it looks like a view from inside a bubble with membranes around it. Fluid is moving all around it. Back to laboratory.
What is that?
He steps closer to the monitor and rubs his hands together more briskly. Monitor. Slowly, the images begin to dissipate, and then the screen changes back to static. Back to laboratory.
What? Nothing more?
Dr. Emerson puts his hand on Edgar's shoulder to comfort him. Edgar looks at him and then faces downward, shaking his head.
No!
Sir, shall we remove her from the apparatus?
Without looking up, Edgar nods his head. He begrudgingly makes his way to the keyboard and enters some data. The head apparatus slowly raises up.
Whoa. What was I looking at?
It was just a psychological exam.
How did I do?
Everything checked out fine. You are in perfect health.
She removes the restraints from Kristen, who slowly stands up, a little unstable. Alexine takes her by the arm.
Let's get you home. I have an envelope for you upstairs and we'll call you a cab.
As they walk toward the door of the lab, Kristen slows down and turns around to acknowledge the others.
Goodbye, y'all.
Edgar does not move, but the others wave to her. Alexine and Kristen exit the room.
I don't understand.
Sir, it's about dinner time. Let us consume some food and digest what just transpired. I am certain there is an answer. That is why you brought us here, correct? For intellectual collaboration?
Yes, this is good timing. We have time to clean up, and I've made 7:30 reservations at O'Neill's.
Edgar lifts up his head and forces a smile.
Yes, good plan.
Interior, O'Neill's restaurant, night. The 5 of them are sitting around a circular table with drinks in front of them, awaiting their food.
I just don't understand. I've tested and tested it, and it should have worked.
The food is now delivered to the table. They begin to eat.
Is it possible that it just won't work on all subjects?
All beings have consciousness, and the process by which it is filtered via the nullim is sound. I've conducted years of research and performed a multitude of tests. It should engage the information for all humans, with no exception.
A few moments pass.
Dr. Graves, in your book, you wrote an entire chapter on susceptibility. If I recall correctly, you speculate that the discovery of past lives for each individual could be vastly different based on how many lives were actually lived. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I also found it to be fascinating to learn that in this life, there are those that may hold deeper wisdom than others. You wrote that it could be the result of experiences from multiple past lives. That would be in contrast to those who, well, live on a more simple plane. They would only have lived a few past lives.
Edgar sits up straight.
Yes?
Well, in the case of Kristen, how shall I say, it would appear from my observations that she currently lives on quite a simpler plane.
Yes. Yes, Alicia. I believe I understand where you're going with this. If I may.
Alicia smiles and nods.
Edgar, let's discuss what we saw on the monitor.
Mostly static, then I recall fluid surrounding a sphere.
It was like we were looking outward from inside the sphere. And there were squiggly lines on the surface. I want to say that they look like membranes.
Forgive me, I'm not following.
I think what we were looking at was the inside of her mother's womb.
Edgar looks taken aback, and then his eyes light up.
Oh my!
And perhaps that is the only past prior to birth for Kristen, because she is, well, I'll say it, brand new.
They all laugh profusely for a couple of minutes. As the laughing dies down, Edgar takes out a handkerchief and wipes below his eyes from tears of laughter.
Oh my! I knew it was the right decision bringing you all into this. Alicia, brilliant observation.
It all came from your book, sir.
Jake takes Alicia's hand under the table. She smiles at him. Dr. Emerson and Alexine's eyes lock. This time, she's the one that diverts her eyes.
Waiter, another bottle of wine, please.
Exterior, outside Edgar's house, night. Returning from the restaurant, the car pulls in front of the house. Edgar notices some light coming through an opening at the front door.
Oh, no, please, not again.
He gets out of the car and begins to walk toward the front door. He hears the car doors open behind him. He turns around.
No, wait, it may not be safe. Please, stay inside the car.
The women look a little frightened and get back into the car. Dr. Emerson and Jake stay out. The men close the car doors.
I'll lock the doors. We'll be right back.
Dr. Emerson and Jake catch up to Edgar.
The women should be safe. We're with you. I want to help.
Okay, let's see what happened.
They approach the front door. It is slightly ajar.
See, it's been forced open.
Let's enter slowly.
Edgar pushes the door open slowly, and it creaks. They all enter into the dimly lit hallway. Interior, Edgar's house, hallway, night. He turns on the inside light. He notices the door with the keypad on the side of the hallway is open.
Oh, no.
Jake, please check the back of the house and upstairs. Take this with you.
He hands him a cane from a stand by the front door.
Okay.
Jake makes his way down the hallway, flipping on lights as he goes. He holds the cane in a defensive position. For a few moments, he is out of sight. He re-emerges.
Everything looks untouched down here. I'm heading upstairs.
They see him disappear again into the stairwell. Dr. Emerson and Edgar are looking anxious as they listen to his steps upstairs. They hear him come back down the stairs, and he reappears.
I'll clear upstairs, too.
Thank you, Jake. Now let's head down. I fear what we will find.
They descend down the steps. Interior, Edgar's house, outside of laboratory, night. The sliding doors appear to have been tampered with, but are closed. Though damaged, the optical scanner is still emitting light. Edgar places his eye over it. The doors open slowly, but make a scraping sound due to them being damaged. They enter the lab. Interior, Edgar's house, laboratory, night. They are carefully looking around the room.
Well, everything seems to be here and in okay condition. I don't think they were able to enter the lab.
He sits at the console and presses a button. Nothing happens. He types into the keyboard and presses more buttons. Still no activity. He lowers his head.
It's not working.
Where's the power source?
In the garage.
They briskly make their way out of the room. Exterior, outside Edgar's house, night. Jake runs up to the car to make sure the women are okay. Then the men all meet in front of the garage.
Circuit breakers in the garage. I don't see any damage to the front garage doors. Let's check the side entrance.
They go to the side of the garage and find the door kicked in. Jake pushes through the door and they enter. Interior, Edgar's house, garage, night.
If anyone is in here, you'd better run.
The other two follow behind him, and Edgar takes a flashlight off the workbench. He shines it around and then points it to the light switch. He flips the light on. Jake searches through the garage.
I think we're clear.
Edgar leads them to two breaker boxes that are next to each other. He shines the light at the thick wires below one of them. They have all been severed.
Oh, this is horrible. The Nolem uses so much power. I needed to have an electrician designate exclusive circuits for it. These severed wires powered the Nolem.
Edgar, who would do this?
I truly have no idea.
You said not again before. This has happened before?
Well, they never got this far, but yes, one other time the house almost got broken into. I think they got scared off the first time before they could get too far. That is why I enhanced security on my device.
So they are trying to sabotage your experiments?
It would appear so. However, very few even know the device exists. I truly do not understand what is happening or why.
They gaze at the breaker box for a moment, thinking.
At least we still have power to the rest of the house. Perhaps we should check on the women.
The others acknowledge and they exit the garage. Exterior, outside Edgar's house, night. They approach the car. Jake opens the door for Alicia and assists her out. Dr. Emerson opens the door to assist Alexine. Light from the above street lamp exposes her face as she looks up at him longingly. Looking back into her eyes, he extends his right hand. She takes it and begins to stand, but then takes his left hand for additional assistance. She is now standing and holding both of his hands, but then she feels the ring on his finger. She lets go and steps away from him.
Thank you. Someone broke into the house?
Sadly, yes. There is some damage, but doesn't look like anything was taken. I checked thoroughly, and they're long gone.
Aren't you going to call the police?
Well, your safety is my primary concern. However, I am confident that whoever is responsible for this is long gone.
We cannot have the police snooping around the device. We want to keep it as private as possible.
Come, my friends. Let's head inside.
Interior, Edgar's house, kitchen, night. They are standing around the island in the center of the kitchen.
I'm so sorry this has happened to you.
Thank you, sir. At least they didn't get to the device. Why don't we call it a night? The three of you must be tired from a long day, so perhaps you would like to make your way upstairs to your rooms?
They acknowledge.
Alexine, let me walk you to your car. Then I'll call my handyman and have him install a temporary lock for the night.
Dr. Emerson stops partway up the stairs, looks around, and comes back into the kitchen. Jake and Alicia continue upstairs.
Please, let me help.
Sir, your help is certainly welcome. If you wouldn't mind escorting Alexine to her car, I'll call my handyman.
Happy to accommodate, sir.
He extends his arm to Alexine.
Shall we?
She hesitantly takes his arm.
Good night, Edgar. I'll see you in the morning.
As always, I am truly grateful for your assistance. Please drive carefully, Alexine, and good night.
Edgar picks up his phone and hits a button on it.
Mr. Rawlings, I'm in dire need of your help.
His voice fades as the other two make their way outside. Exterior, outside Edgar's house, night.
I'm parked this way, on the side street.
Very well.
They begin to walk, slowly. No words are exchanged for a minute. They each look at each other, without the other noticing.
Quite a day, wouldn't you say?
Every day with Edgar is usually interesting, and today was certainly no exception. He is a brilliant man. Kind, too.
Agreed. I'm quite fond of him. How long have you worked with him?
Just over a year. My thesis was actually based on his book. It's an honor to be able to spend so much time with him as his work progresses.
They take several more steps before speaking again.
If I may ask, are you single?
If I may respond, one of us is.
Oh, please, let me explain.
Your situation?
Well, yes, if I may.
Dr. Emerson.
Stephen, please.
Okay, Stephen. You're probably going to say that your situation is complicated and that you're in a loveless marriage. You're probably just staying together for the children, am I right?
Well, that is actually partly correct. However, we have no children. It was never in the cards for us.
They reach your car.
Well, I suppose this is the perfect time to say goodnight.
He gazes at her.
Dr. Emerson, Stephen, I find you to be an interesting, possibly fascinating individual. There appears to be some kind of connection between us. I might even say that I find you mildly attractive, but...
He grabs her upper arms and pulls himself toward her. They kiss passionately. She then pushes herself away.
I just can't. Good night.
She gets in her car and drives away. He stands there and watches until the car is out of sight. Interior, Edgar's dining room, morning. Dr. Emerson, Jake, Alicia, and Edgar are sitting at the table having breakfast.
All is delicious, sir. We thank you.
I'm glad you are all enjoying it. You all slept well, I trust?
Dr. Emerson looks at Jake and Alicia for confirmation, and they nod.
We did indeed. It sounded as if you were up early this morning.
Yes, my friend Mr. Rawlings, who is a handyman, though frankly a jack of all trades, was kind enough to arrive early this morning to help fix the situation created by last night's events.
There is a knock on the front door, and then the sound of it opening.
Hello, Dr. Graves.
Edgar stands up.
Yes, please, come in, Mr. Rawlings.
At the doorway appears Mr. Rawlings, an older man with a large stature. He notices everyone in the room and smiles.
Well, good morning, all.
They all smile back.
Good morning, sir.
My friends, I would like to introduce Mr. Rawlings. He is a longtime friend who has also been an immense help in so many ways. I have yet to see something he cannot fix.
Oh, it's not as impressive as all that.
Well, I disagree. Please allow me to introduce Alicia, Jake, and Dr. Emerson.
Well, very nice to meet you, Alicia, Jake, and Dr. Emerson. I see your new friends are quite an upgrade from the usual riffraff.
Present company included, I tend to agree.
They both laugh.
Would you like some breakfast?
Oh, no, thank you. I just wanted to let you know that I replaced the wires, so the power should now be restored to that thingamajig you have downstairs.
Excellent.
It would appear the current system of security we devised is not adequate. May I suggest a secondary deadbolt to the front door? Also, I can add automatic spotlights and cameras around the outside of the house if you'd like.
Yes. I think those additions would be prudent, whenever it is convenient for you.
Start right now. Oh, and I also fixed the sliding doors downstairs.
You are a gentleman, sir. I am truly grateful.
My pleasure. It was nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you too.
Mr. Rawlings exits, and we hear the front door open and close.
I truly have no idea what I would do without him.
I like him. He has a lovely disposition.
I agree. Well, shall we discuss the next steps? I believe Alexine will be with us shortly.
Dr. Emerson shifts in his chair.
If the power is restored to the Nylum, should we continue with the experiments?
I believe that is a great idea. Alexine has found some more willing subjects.
If I may.
Yes, sir?
This may sound as if out of the blue.
Edgar smiles.
Your input and ideas are not only welcome, they are encouraged.
Well, I would like to request to be your next subject.
The three of them look surprised.
I believe in this process and the Nylum. Learning where I came from is information that I've long desired to obtain, and now it seems possible.
Well, this is a bit of a surprise.
He takes a few bites of food.
Well, I certainly cannot think of a reason why not.
Dr. Emerson smiles and nods. A knock at the front door, and then we hear it open and close. Alexine appears at the door. She looks at everyone except Dr. Emerson.
Good morning, all.
Dr. Emerson stands up, then realizes that he drew attention to himself. He slowly sits down again.
Good morning.
Come in, Alexine. Please, sit. We were just discussing the next steps. There has been an interesting turn of events.
Oh?
Well, the Nylum is functional again, and we have a new volunteer for the next experiment.
Edgar gestures toward Dr. Emerson.
I see. This is also truly fascinating.
Let us all proceed downstairs in 30 minutes. Agreed?
They all acknowledge. Alexine looks uncomfortable. Interior, Edgar's laboratory, day. Dr. Emerson is sitting in the chair for the experiment. The head apparatus has already been lowered onto his head. Edgar is at the console. Alexine, Jake, and Alicia are observing.
Ready to proceed, Dr. Emerson?
I am, sir.
Okay, here we go.
Edgar presses a button on the console. Dr. Emerson grabs the armrests more firmly. Monitor. Static appears, and blurred images begin to appear. Back to laboratory. The attention of Alexine, Jake, Alicia, and Edgar are firmly affixed on the monitor. Monitor. An image appears of a woman in the distance, standing by a lake, wearing a 19th century dress holding a parasol. She turns her head to face the monitor. Her image becomes larger as the monitor closes in, as if walking toward her. She smiles. When more distinguishable, her features are very similar to Alexine's. Back to laboratory. Edgar looks closer at the monitor, and then looks at Alexine.
Now, that is quite interesting.
Alexine shakes her head in disbelief.
A coincidence, I think.
Monitor. The screen goes static again, and another image begins to appear. Slowly appearing is a group of people wearing early 19th century peasant clothing. It appears they are listening and engaged. Some nod their heads as if accepting what is being told to them, even though it cannot be heard. Then it appears that they are speaking up enthusiastically and raising their arms in agreement. Two of them approach the monitor and are handed stacks of books. They step back and hand out the books to the others, who begin to flip through them immediately. They look at the monitor and smile. The view moves up and down as if nodding in agreement. He then turns his head, and the image of a small community building appears. The image slowly dissipates and turns into static. Back to laboratory.
Do you all see what I'm seeing? This is incredible.
It's working!
It really is.
Monitor. A new image appears of walking into a large hospital tent, with patients looking very uncomfortable and covered in welts. The image dissipates. A close-up image looking down at a woman in her 40s in tattered, though refined, 18th century clothing, covered in welts. She is looking toward the monitor, and her body begins to shake. Back to laboratory. Alicia looks at Dr. Emerson as he shifts in the chair and holds the armrests more firmly. Alicia looks back at the monitor. Monitor. The woman slowly dies. The image becomes blurred as she is pulled in very close. The images dissipate to static. A few moments pass of just static. Back to laboratory. Jake and Alicia share a look of concern. Monitor. An image appears of an 18th century fireplace. It is indoors, and logs are burning inside. Back to laboratory. Alicia watches Dr. Emerson again as his body becomes more relaxed. Monitor. 2 young girls and a boy, along with a mother and father, sitting around the fireplace. They look back toward the monitor, gesturing to come join them. The room is spanned where you can see it is a log cabin illuminated by candles. There is a Christmas tree by the wall. He approaches it, and you see small hands pick up a gift. The card reads, "To Gideon, from Santa." He puts the gift down and approaches the others. Slowly, the image dissipates. Next appearing are Chinese warriors running into battle. As they engage with the enemy, a sword is moving swiftly, killing enemy soldiers. An enemy soldier charges directly at him with his sword. The view shakes, and then all you see is sky. He looks down and sees a sword in his abdomen and wraps his hands around it. The screen goes black for a few moments, then static appears. Several moments pass with just static. Back to laboratory.
Amazing. Phew. I believe that is the conclusion.
Fascinating, but maybe a bit disturbing.
Edgar shakes his head and gestures in disagreement.
Let's release Stephen.
Yes.
Edgar approaches the console and enters data into the keyboard. The head apparatus raises up. Dr. Emerson looks frazzled and exhausted. Edgar approaches him.
Are you okay, sir?
I think so. I think I need to stay seated for a moment. May I have some water?
Of course.
Alexine opens a bottle of water and hands it to him. He drinks most of it.
I assume you saw everything we saw?
I believe I did. Welts, battles, a woman, Christmas time in a cabin.
Yes.
Are you certain you're okay, Dr. Emerson?
Physically, I'm okay, but I think I need to absorb what just transpired. Do you mind if I go upstairs and lay down a while?
Yes, of course, sir.
Jake approaches Dr. Emerson and helps him up.
Let me help you upstairs.
Dr. Emerson puts his arm across Jake's back, and they slowly exit the room.
I hope he's okay.
I believe he's just exhausted. What all of us, just witnessed was the last 300 years of his lives. Success!
Truly incredible, yet I confess, I feel a little unsettled.
Unsettled? We just filled in many blanks of one's life.
Or did we add elements that could become disruption?
Rubbish. This is life-changing.
Alicia and Jake both force smiles of encouragement. Interior, Edgar's guest bedroom, day. Dr. Emerson is asleep on the bed, facing up. Alexine is leaning over him, stroking his hair and face.
Rest, baby. You're the one I've been waiting for.
Alexine moves to a chair on the side of the room and starts reading a magazine. He slowly opens his eyes. All is blurry, so he affixes his eyes on the light on the ceiling. Slowly, the decorative light fixture comes into view. He then turns his head and sees Alexine sitting in a chair, reading.
Alexine?
She looks toward him and quickly stands up.
You're awake.
He rubs his forehead.
How long?
Several hours. It's now 4 p.m. I guess you needed some rest after the remarkable event.
Remarkable.
You do remember, don't you?
He starts to become more alert and sits up.
Yes, I remember the experiment. Perhaps too well. I'm having difficulty separating these images from what is here and now. Where is everyone?
Edgar has been in his study writing non-stop since this morning. Jake and Alicia wanted some air, so they're at the local park. Are you hungry?
I am.
Interior, Edgar's house, kitchen, day. Alexine is doing dishes as Dr. Emerson finishes up eating.
Tea?
He appears very tired, but looks up to her and smiles.
Yes, thank you.
She smiles back with a look of satisfaction. When the tea is ready, she brings over a cup for him and for herself and sits down.
What a momentous day.
I have to confess, although I am quite impressed with the fact that the experiment reached the desired goal, I'm uncertain of the benefits.
Are you serious? You now know from whence you came.
Am I a more self-actualized person contained with this knowledge? I do not sense that gaps were filled, but rather overloaded, as if some unwelcome elements have been added to my psyche.
My opinion on this differs greatly from yours, Stephen.
Perhaps you would need to be in my shoes to better understand.
Finish your tea. I want to show you something.
Interior, Edgar's laboratory, day. The sliding doors are already open, and Alexine leads Edgar into the lab.
I'm not certain I'm ready to be in here again at the moment.
Just have a seat over here. Please.
She points in front of the monitor. He sits. She approaches the console and enters data into the keyboard. Static appears on the screen. She sits next to Edgar and takes his hand.
What is this?
Would you like to learn more about my past? And I really mean my past.
You did the experiment?
After the success you had, I was anxious to go next. Edgar agreed, so we conducted it privately.
He looks at her with surprise. She rubs his arm and smiles back.
Let's watch.
Monitor. Static. Moving imagery appears of small hands appearing on each side of the screen, as if walking forward. Ahead is a road with occasional cars passing by. As the curb is reached, the motion of the hands subside. After a moment, one foot steps off the curb, then the other. Suddenly, the view turns left as a fast-moving car is approaching. It comes closer until it is inches away. Screen goes black. Static. A lake. Looking upward toward a blue sky with the edge of a decorative parasol in view. In the distance is a well-dressed man approaching. As he gets close, he is smiling. Static. Approaching the back of a guillotine. Enter through the guillotine, and a crowd of people are seen, showing various emotions from anger to sadness. Blood-stained bucket below. View shifts up and down as if breathing heavily. All goes black. Back to laboratory. Dr. Emerson looks at Alexine. She is looking at the monitor intently, with a slight smile on her face. He shakes his head and looks back at the monitor. Monitor. Top half of a naked man facing up in bed. Image is moving up and down and slowly increasing in pace. His expression is one of feeling increasing pleasure. The pace continues to increase. Static. Woman's hands on each side of the screen, walking toward a cliff. Hands subside. Looking down at a long letter. The words at the end of it are readable. I can no longer do this. The letter is set on the ground, and a rock is placed over it. Approach the cliff. Pause. And then jumps off, descending quickly. A few moments pass. Black. Then static. Looking up from a bed to see a woman in 17th century nursing apparel. She walks to the bottom of the bed and looks between two bent legs. She mouths the word, push. A few moments pass. She mouths it again, push. She reaches her hands between the legs and ascends with a baby. The nurse walks to the side of the bed with the baby and approaches. Static. Back to laboratory.
That's the end. What did you think? Weren't my past lives fascinating?
He looks at her with a loss for words.
What?
Rather tragic past, wouldn't you say?
I am certain that there is a fascinating story behind each of those occurrences. It is just the past, and I'm here today. I feel completed to know that so much happened before I entered this world.
You have quite the interesting view of this. I'm certainly not so optimistic.
Oh, Stephen. And you and me, I'm now certain that we met in a past life. That is why we're so drawn together now.
He nods and shrugs in partial agreement.
So what now?
My students and I need to get back to the university. Much to do.
She frowns.
When will I see you next?
Soon, I'm certain, dear.
She looks away from him with sadness in her eyes. Exterior, park by Edgar's house. Day. Alicia and Jake are sitting on a park bench. Jake has his arm around her. The park is busy with bike riders, joggers, and a few kites in the sky.
Pretty park.
Yes, it is.
A moment passes.
Quite a weekend.
Certainly one for the books.
What do you make of it?
The experiment?
Of course, what else?
Well, perhaps there are things that should not be tampered with.
Can't say I disagree. Would you still have interest in learning about your past?
The reason that this interested me in the first place is because of Rebecca. Needed to know that Rebecca ended up somewhere else and hopefully to a better place.
And?
I do feel satisfaction knowing that there is more after we die.
Well, that's one positive element to this experiment.
Yes, but I have no interest in learning more about my past. We need to live in the here and now in order to flourish for the future.
She puts her head on his shoulder.
So glad to hear that, Jake. I fully agree.
What about you?
A moment passes as she ponders.
I'm happy right now and don't want anything to change that.
He places his hand under her chin and turns it so they are facing each other. They kiss passionately. She smiles and puts her head back on his shoulder. Interior, airplane, day. Same as the flight over, Dr. Emerson is sitting alone, and Jake and Alicia are sitting next to each other across the aisle. Dr. Emerson looks tired and weathered. Alicia and Jake notice and share a look of concern. Interior, bookstore, day. It is 5 years after the barbershop experiment. Julio is in a bookstore browsing through the aisles. He passes a table of books, slows down, and comes to a stop. His expression changes from casual to serious. He backs up, approaches the table, and picks up a book titled The Nalem Rhapsody by Edgar Graves. With a slight scowl, he drops the book back onto the table. Interior, restaurant, night. Julio and his girlfriend Lydia are sitting by a window in a nice restaurant.
So, there was a case in one hospital's intensive care ward where patients always died in the same bed on Sunday morning at about 11 a.m., regardless of their medical condition. This puzzled the doctors, and some even thought that it had something to do with the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
No one could solve the mystery as to why the deaths occurred around 11 a.m. on Sundays. So a worldwide team of experts was assembled to investigate the cause of the incidents. The next Sunday morning, a few minutes before 11 a.m., all doctors and nurses nervously wait outside the ward to see for themselves what the terrible phenomenon was all about. Some were holding wooden crosses, prayer books, and other holy objects to ward off the evil spirits. Just when the clock struck 11, Jamal James, the part-time Sunday sweeper, entered the ward and unplugged the life support system so that he could use the vacuum cleaner.
They both laugh.
I enjoy spending time with you, Julio. Glad you're in a better mood now. I was sorry when you said that you had a bad day. Want to talk about it?
Julio looks downward with a serious look on his face and takes a deep breath. He then looks toward Lydia.
Well, it's like this. A few years back, I had a friend from college named Edgar, who was a scientist. A group of us did a lot together, including helping him with his experiments.
What kind of experiments?
Well, he was a believer in past lives, and he was trying to prove it scientifically.
Wow, that's rather far-fetched, but I will say interesting.
Yes, well, anyway, he and I were formulating a partnership. He was working on a book that explained his theories. At that time, my publishing business was just getting started. I truly felt this book was marketable, and he was going to be one of my largest clients.
Flashback. Exterior, Edgar's apartment, day. It is 5 years earlier. Julio is standing at the top of the entry steps to Edgar's apartment and is pounding at the door. No one is answering, so Julio looks up and down the street where multiple people are walking on the sidewalks. He notices the back of Edgar's head and runs in that direction. He catches up with Edgar, grabs his shoulder, and turns him around. Edgar is startled.
What? Julio?
Julio waves a piece of paper in front of his face and is very agitated.
I went to finalize the copyright on your book and just received this letter.
Oh, that.
Beckham Publishing is covering your book?
Edgar puts his hand on Julio's shoulder to try to calm him down. Julio steps back quickly, and Edgar's hand drops.
No. Why, goddammit?
Can we sit somewhere and discuss this?
Julio glares at him.
Okay. They approached me a few weeks ago. They offered me a nice advance check, and they're, well, established.
Julio glares at him for a few more moments, and then puts his finger in his face.
You screwed me. I will do everything I can to make sure you do not succeed.
Julio storms off. Edgar shrugs his shoulders and continues to walk. End flashback. Interior, restaurant, night.
Wow, he really screwed you.
Yes, he did. I have not seen him since, but I get angrier every time I think about it.
So what happened today to spur this on?
I came across his very successful book at the bookstore.
I'm so sorry, Julio. But look at you now. Your publishing company is a raging success.
Yes, but it took me much longer than it would have otherwise. I deserved better.
Julio looks away from her and scowls. Interior, Dr. Emerson's house, day. Returning from the trip, he enters the front door. Megan comes from the kitchen to greet him.
Hello there. How was your trip?
He looks at her, nods his head, and shrugs his shoulders. He puts his hand on her upper arm, kisses her cheek, and then proceeds to his study. She stands there, looking puzzled. Interior, college classroom, day. Dr. Emerson is standing behind the podium, blankly staring down at it. Several moments go by, and the class becomes jittery. Alicia notices this and tries to help.
Sir, I believe we were discussing somatogenic theory, correct?
A few more moments pass with no reaction. Then he suddenly looks up.
What? Oh, yes. As we were discussing, somatogenic theory states that abnormality is caused by a biological disorder or illness, as opposed to psychogenic theory, which says that abnormality stems from psychological problems.
He looks down at the podium again as a few more moments pass. The students share glances of confusion.
Was there more, Dr. Emerson?
Yes. Turn to the next section and we'll discuss treatments.
As they turn the pages, he stares out to the classroom blankly. He then shakes his head to bring himself out of it.
Actually, class dismissed. We'll discuss this tomorrow.
He throws some books in a bag and moves quickly out of the room. The students look puzzled, but slowly pack up their things and get up to leave. Alicia and Jake look at each other with great concern.
He's been this way since we got back last week. I'm concerned.
I am too.
Interior, Dr. Emerson's study, night. Dr. Emerson is standing in his study, reading his certifications and awards that are neatly standing on a bookshelf. He then slowly scans the wall next to it, which is displaying photographs of his travels, as well as photos of him shaking hands with people that appear important. He continues to scan and walk the room until he reaches his computer and sits down. Staring at the blank computer screen for a few moments, he then pulls his cell phone out of his pocket. He looks at the door to the study to make sure it is closed. Presses a few buttons on his phone. He pulls up his contacts until Al appears. He looks at it a moment and then presses a button to call. The phone is placed to his ear.
Yes, it's nice to hear your voice too. I know it's been a few days. I have an idea.
Interior, Dr. Emerson's house, foyer, day. He is standing by the front door with a suitcase. Megan is standing at the bottom of the steps, looking serious.
Have another conference already?
Afraid so. I have to keep up with my certifications, you know. Goodbye, dear.
He walks out the front door. She watches the door close as she tries to hold back tears. Interior, Leeward Bar, night. Edgar is back at his favorite bar. There are several people there this time, spread out in small groups. Edgar is sitting at the same seat at the bar as before, having an inaudible conversation with Lee. After a few moments, they shake hands, and Edgar heads toward the exit. He shakes hands with a few people on the way out. Exterior, seaside town, night. He makes his way up the street toward his house. Faint sirens are heard, which become louder as he gets closer to his home. He is a couple blocks away from his house and notices smoke against the dark sky in that direction. A look of concern grows on his face as he picks up the pace. He turns a corner to find his house completely up in flames. Several fire engines and police cars are out front. He sees Mr. Rawlings talking to police. Mr. Rawlings sees him approaching, excuses himself from talking to the officers, and briskly walks toward Edgar. He reaches Edgar and puts his hands on his shoulders.
I'm so deeply sorry, sir.
Edgar is visibly upset as he watches what is left of his house.
Tried to stop it, but it was just too late.
Edgar looks at him.
Tried to stop it?
Yes, sir. I saw who did this.
You know who did this?
Yes, sir, and we got him. He tried to run, but I caught him. Police have him now.
Who the hell is it?
I didn't recognize his face.
Where is he now?
In the back of the police car.
Edgar quickly moves toward the police car. A police officer notices and gets in front of him, pushing him back by the shoulders.
Sir, I need you to stay back.
He burned down my house!
We will make sure that justice is served, but we need to do this the right way.
Edgar continues to try and see inside the car, but he can only see the back of a man's head, for the car is still several feet away. Then the car pulls forward and makes a U-turn. It passes right by Edgar, and he can see in the window. He looks very hard to see the face. Then the streetlight above illuminates it, and the identity of the face becomes clear.
No, it can't be. No!
The car pulls away. Edgar is looking to the ground, shaking his head, trying to figure it out.
Davis?
Mr. Rawlings approaches him and places his hand on Edgar's shoulder and pulls him by his side. They start to walk down the street, away from the burning house.
Come on, sir. You're staying with me.
Davis.
Exterior, cabin, night. Back to cabin in the woods in the heavy rain shortly before opening scene. Interior, cabin, night. Dr. Emerson is standing, looking out the window with a serious look on his face. He is not wearing a shirt.
Come back to bed, Stephen.
He looks over and sees Alexine under the covers. She proceeds to hold the sheet open for him. He first approaches the fireplace and stokes the fire. Then he moves to the bed and slides in next to her. She puts her head on his chest and then looks up at the ceiling as the sound of the pounding rain is hitting the roof.
Listen to that. It is both soothing and stimulating at the same time.
Dr. Emerson is looking blankly toward the ceiling.
Yes.
I so love this cabin.
We used to spend summers here. It's been years now.
The intensity of the rain increases.
Listen to that. The pounding rain is getting me excited again.
She starts to kiss him. He hesitantly kisses her back, but then rolls over toward her and becomes more passionate. They make love. Interior, Mr. Rawlings' house, morning. Edgar and Mr. Rawlings are having breakfast.
You like those eggs? Those are my specialty.
Yes, very good.
Edgar then stops eating and looks directly into Mr. Rawlings' eyes.
Thank you. I mean it for everything.
Sir, it's my honor to be there in your hour of need. Isn't that what friends are for?
Edgar smiles and nods.
Indeed it is.
Police called after you went to sleep. They asked for you to come down to the station at 10 o'clock this morning.
Oh?
I'll drive you.
Interior, cabin, night. Dr. Emerson and Alexine are asleep. Dr. Emerson suddenly sits up.
Sword!
He puts his hand on his abdomen. Alexine sits up and puts her arms around him.
It's okay. That's all the past.
I just can't get these feelings and images out of my head. It's like I'm living a nightmare all the time.
She rubs his arms.
Are you not experiencing this?
I can clearly see everything that emerged from the experiment, but I'm at peace with it. True, it is ingrained in my memory, but I'm able to accept that it is in the past, and I choose to live in the present. I simply just find it all fascinating.
I don't know. Everything has changed for me.
Oh, Stephen, try to get some sleep. You'll feel better in the morning.
She helps him lay back down, placing the pillow under his head. She kisses him on the cheek and rolls over. He is facing away from her. His face is full of anguish, but his eyelids slowly start to close as his face becomes more relaxed. Interior, police station, day. Edgar is sitting in an interrogation room by himself. Detective Marley enters the room and shakes his hand.
I first would like to say, Dr. Graves, that I am so sorry at the loss of your house.
Thank you.
Also, I apologize for all the formality, but I need to bring you down here to ask you some questions. The good news is we have our guy. Mr. Rawlings is a key witness, and we have two others that saw the man approach the house prior to the fire.
Edgar nods.
Now, that being said, we have no idea of motive. I understand you know who Davis McFarrell is?
I do. It's been many years since I've had contact with him. We were college friends, but lost touch.
So, you were friends?
Yes.
Do you have any idea why he would do this?
I truly do not. When we last spoke years ago, we were on good terms. We just lost touch. I did try to reach out to him a few times, but his responses dwindled. Eventually, I lost track of him completely.
There were no arguments or fights over a girl or anything like that?
There were not.
Interesting. Well, he has asked to speak with you. Perhaps that would shed some light on this. Are you amenable to that?
Certainly. I would like to know for what reason I've lost so much.
Very well. I'll send him in. He will be handcuffed to the chair, and we'll be right behind that glass.
Detective Marley opens the door and makes a gesture to someone. He opens the door all the way, and an arm appears. He takes the arm and escorts Davis into the room. Davis does not make eye contact with Edgar. The detective sits Davis down and handcuffs his wrists to the chair.
Again, we'll be right outside.
Davis looks at the floor as if afraid to look up. He looks very bothered.
Okay, I'll start. What the fuck, Davis?
Davis continues to look at the floor and shakes his head.
Tell me why you've done this, goddammit!
Davis shakes his head more rapidly and then looks up to Edgar.
I had to.
For God's sake, why?
Davis looks back toward the two-way mirror because he knows that they are listening. He leans in as far as he can.
Because of the device.
Oh, no need to be secret about it now. It's long gone because of you. What about the device?
Okay, here it is.
Yes?
Do you remember one of our first experiments?
Which one?
In the barber shop.
I do, with that homeless fellow.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and?
Interior barbershop night. Flashback. 20 years earlier. James pulls off the electrodes, pushes Edgar out of the way, and rushes to the door.
Wait!
Please stop, James.
He struggles with the deadbolt while the others try to catch him. He unlocks it before they reach him, opens the door, and runs down the street.
We need more details. We must catch him. Let's go. Davis, you stay here and keep an eye on things.
The three of them run out the door. Interior, police station, day. End of flashback.
Yes, I remember you stayed behind.
Well, after seeing that the device may actually work, I became rather enamored with it. With all the excitement and no one else around.
Wait, you used my device that night?
Interior, barbershop, night, flashback. 20 years earlier.
I just couldn't help it. I loved that this was your experiment for art. I always imagined that I had amazing past lives.
Davis attaches an empty beaker to a fresh needle and inserts it in his arm to draw blood.
I'd watched you use the device enough times that I knew all the steps.
Davis enters data into the keyboard. He then pours his blood into a funnel. He places 2 electrodes on his forehead. He enters more data into the keyboard and watches the blood transfer into a separate container. He then picks up a broom handle, makes his way to the barber chair, and sits down. He reaches over to the device with the broom handle and rests it over the large button. He takes a deep breath, lifts the broom handle, and then lets it fall on the button, activating the device. His hands grip the armrests firmly as his body tightens up.
I just didn't expect what I was going to see.
Montage, various. Exterior, street with soldiers, day. First-person view, standing in formation with Nazi soldiers. They break formation and each approach citizens. He pushes one down to kneel, stands behind her, draws his gun to her head, and pulls the trigger. Exterior in the sea, scuba diving, day. He is deep down toward the bottom of the sea. There is someone with him. When that person has their back to him, he swims up behind him, takes a knife, and cuts his oxygen supply. He watches as the other is losing air. He ascends. Exterior, county fair. First-person view as a small child looking upwards at the crowd. He is holding hands with his mother. He jumps up and down as they wait for the carousel. Interior, church, day. He is looking at the face of a woman in her 20s that he is about to marry. She is smiling, and his face is drawn closer to her to kiss. Interior, bedroom, night. The same woman, now in her 40s, is laying on her back, looking up at him, terrified. His hands go around her neck. She struggles to breathe. End montage. Davis frantically pulls the electrodes from his forehead and is very upset. He begins to pace around the barbershop. End flashback. Interior, police station, day. Present day.
I was a horrible person. It would appear that you were, and still are.
I did it to save others.
You did it for your own selfish reasons because you couldn't cope.
I never told anyone about the experiment. After that night, I was haunted continually with those thoughts. My life took a dark turn and I was completely lost. I've been ever since. I didn't want anyone else to ever have to go through that.
I simply do not believe that the experiment would impact all subjects in such a dark way. I think your social instability aligned with those images created a scenario in which you clearly could not cope.
I did it to help people.
You've ruined your life, and now you've attempted to ruin mine. I will prevail while you sit in prison.
I was already in a prison.
Edgar stands up and walks toward the door.
Goodbye, Davis.
Davis lowers his head and weeps. Edgar exits the room. Interior, police station outside of interrogation room, day. Edgar enters the room behind the two-way mirror with Detective Marley and one other officer. They are watching Davis, weeping heavily. Edgar stands and watches with them for a moment.
Have what you need?
Somewhat. However, I do not fully understand the nature of the device you were discussing.
Edgar points to Davis.
He can tell you all about it.
Edgar exits the room. Interior, police station entrance, night. Edgar approaches Mr. Rawlings, who is waiting at the entrance. They exit the building together. Interior, cabin, night. Dr. Emerson and Alexine are asleep on each side of the bed. Dr. Emerson suddenly wakes up in great anxiety. He prevents himself from screaming out. With rigor, he runs his fingers through his hair.
Can't take this anymore. Have to get out of here.
He gets out of bed, puts on his coat, and exits the side door that leads outside. Exterior, cabin, night. Repeat of opening scene. Dr. Emerson is on the deck and begins to pull the door closed, but then stops to look at Alexine sleeping. Gently, he pulls the door all the way closed. Covering his head with his coat, he walks with some effort across the deck, goes down the stairs, and heads toward the water. On the edge of the water there is a rowboat turned upside down. Crouching by the side of it, he works to get his footing and slides his fingers under. He lifts slowly, though struggling, for his feet are being pushed back in the mud. He obtains leverage by placing his foot on a nearby rock. He is finally able to get the boat on its side, and he lets it fall upright. He pushes the boat into the water and gets in it as it is moving, so it drifts outward. Interior, cabin, night. Alexine rolls over in bed, but remains asleep. Exterior, river, night. He retrieves the oars from under the seat, places them in the oarlocks, and begins to row. After a few minutes, land is out of sight, and all that exists is the man, the boat, and percussive heavy rain on the surrounding water. He stops rowing, and remains stagnant for a few moments while the boat drifts. The illumination of the moonlight reveals the anguish on Dr. Emerson's face. He bows his head to his chest. His breathing is labored. Under his coat, he is carrying a leather shoulder bag. He opens it and pulls out a book. He clasps it to his chest. On the spine, the words, "The Nalem Rhapsody," are revealed. He breathes more heavily as his face displays increased anguish. Interior, cabin, night. Alexine suddenly wakes up. She looks over and sees that Dr. Emerson is not there.
Stephen! Stephen!
With no response, she gets out of bed and puts her robe on. She checks the rest of the cabin. She then opens the side door and sticks her head out in the pouring rain.
Stephen! Where are you?
Exterior, river, night. Dr. Emerson reaches into the shoulder bag and pulls out a knife encased in leather. Shaking and struggling a bit with it, he unsheaths the knife. With the blade turned upward, he gazes at the blade with an intense concentration. Exterior, cabin, night. Alexine steps out onto the deck. She is visibly upset.
Stephen, please! Stephen!
Exterior, river, night. Though the cabin is out of sight, Dr. Emerson looks in that direction as if he hears something. Then he directs his attention back to the blade. Exterior, cabin, night. Alexine goes by the edge of the deck where the boat had been. She notices it's not there and starts to breathe heavily. She steps into the mud to get closer to the water as she looks out onto the river looking for the boat. She is having trouble getting her footing. Then, when she is close to the water, One of her feet sinks down to her ankle. She tries to stabilize herself with her other foot, but slips and loses her balance. She falls forward and hits her head on a rock. She is unconscious, and her head is bleeding heavily. The waves roll in and slowly carry her out into the river. She is now drifting, face down. Exterior river, night. Dr. Emerson now turns the blade downward. He takes a deep breath as his forearms begin to slowly descend. He directs the blade toward his heart. Without penetrating his clothes, he holds it there for a few moments. He takes a deep breath, then breathes out heavily.
Damn it.
He lets go of the knife and lets it fall to the bottom of the boat. He begins to weep profusely. Ascend toward the sky until both the boat and Alexine's body are in view. A few moments pass, then ascend into the storm clouds. Exterior, storage unit, day. Edgar and Mr. Rawlings are moving around items in a storage unit.
How's that?
Yes, I think that's enough room to move it out. Let's give it a try.
They each grab an end of an object, lift it up, and step out of the unit. Revealed is the original portable Nalum. They carry it over to the truck and place it in the back. They get in the vehicle and start driving.
Are you really ready to start over, Dr. Graves?
I must.
A few moments pass as Edgar continues to drive.
I think Sun Tzu said it best. Like the sun and moon, they end but to begin anew. Like the 4 seasons, they pass away to return once more.
Mr. Rawlings smiles and nods as the car drives away into the distance. Fade out.